Who will be able to thwart Celestia when we finally go head-to-head against those suckers in the clouds? The Traveler? I think not. The Archons? Definitely not. The Fatui? Perhaps. But I think that it is the cats that will be able to change the fate of Teyvat. Yes, I do mean cats. Cats such as Roger, or Nico, or Bonnie, or Wei. You know, our favorite feline companions. Well, I guess you could lump the likes of Lynette or Diona in the list as well. In fact, why don't we talk about those two? Lynette is working with the Fatui. We all know this. This was confirmed in the Fontaine Archon quest. She's a member of the House of the Hearth. And if we extrapolate, the Fatui is plotting against Celestia. Therefore, we can maybe, surmise that Lynette is plotting against Celestia as well. Now, if we look at Lynette's siblings, namely Lyney and Fremine, we can note that Lyney has some cat-like features while Fremine has none at all. Lynette has the most cat-like features out of all of them. And that might be symbolic of their hatred of Celestia. Fremine, whatever, maybe is neutral towards Celestia. Lyney, a little bit antagonistic towards Celestia, but like Lynette, we can theorize that Lynette is a big-time Celestia hater. Perhaps going forward in the story, potentially when we get Arlecchino, or maybe when we arrive in Snezhnaya, we'll see more of Lynette and her hatred of Celestia come through. For now, it's definitely a much more subtle hatred, but I think it's still there. Now, let's talk a bit about Diona. And Diona's hatred of Celestia might be a little bit difficult to see at first, but it's definitely there. So, what do we know about Diona? Diona's main objective in her life is to destroy the wine industry of Mondstadt that's, controlled by Diluc. Now, Diluc is actually quite a fierce adversary of the Fatui. In the manga, he destroyed many Fatui bases with ease. If we extrapolate, Diona taking down the wine industry of Mondstadt and therefore ruining Diluc's business, it might be a strategic ploy to get rid of one of the Fatui's biggest adversaries. With Diluc out of the picture, he can no longer destroy any Fatui strongholds and tamper with their plans, and with the Fatui having one less adversary to worry about, they can start focusing on their main objective, which is to thwart Celestia's rule. Therefore, Diona is directly impacting the Fatui in a positive way, and making sure that Celestia's downfall is imminent. Another example of a cat thwarting Celestia's plans. What about some more obscure examples of cats that are plotting against Celestia? Well, there are quite a few cat NPCs sprinkled all throughout Teyvat who are either actively plotting against Celestia and their associates, or would otherwise think negatively of Celestia. Take, for example, Nico. Nico is 500 years old, and you can find her on Asase Shrine on Seirai Island. She's potentially under a curse of immortality carried out by Celestia, and I find it very interesting that she just, says that she's over 500 years old when you first meet her, and it's never really brought up again. I would not be surprised if she shows up in a Dainsleif quest in the future, where the two of them can lament over their shared curse of immortality. Right now, Nico has a neutral stance on Celestia, but perhaps as she learns more about the world and Celestia's involvement in the Cataclysm and how that changed her friends such as Asase Hibeki, her hatred of Celestia will definitely grow in the future. Don Keanu is a cat that is wanted throughout Fontaine for swashbuckling shenanigans and tomfoolery. His adventures on the raised island nation of Fontaine is perhaps a metaphor for Celestia. I know it's a bit far-fetched, but think about it this way. Celestia is an island in the sky, and Fontaine can be considered, like a raised island mass. Now, perhaps because, Don Keanu is wanted throughout Fontaine, a raised island mass, that might be a metaphor for a cat entity in Celestia that is perhaps seen as a dangerous entity by the heavenly principles. Perhaps Don Keanu's storyline is foreshadowing a Celestia plotline in the future. Perhaps Don Kiana will be an important player in the story moving forward, doing something just so heinous that Celestia puts out an arrest warrant for him, not just in Fontaine, but throughout the entirety of Teyvat. Poor guy. Prince is a cat that has tampered with Barbados in Jean's story quest, stealing Venti's lyre in an act of pure hatred. Perhaps he understands the fact that Venti is an archon and therefore associated with Celestia. It is thus a moral obligation for Prince to foil Barbados' nefarious plans by stealing the lyre, and in extension, foil whatever plans that Celestia has to enslave the people of Teyvat. It is a direct violation of Celestia's orders that Prince has done, stealing Venti's lyre. What a mischievous fool. Speaking of Barbados, did you know that he's allergic to cats? Not many people know this. This is a largely overlooked aspect of his character in the lore, but I believe this to symbolize Celestia's rocky relationship with the feline species in the world of Genshin Impact. Barbados being allergic to cats is directly synonymous to the fact that Celestia might detest cats for interfering with their plans. Prince stealing Venti's lyre, Don Kiano being wanted throughout Fontaine, Lynette plotting with the Fatui to overthrow Celestia, and Diona tampering with the wine industry. Forget the Fatui, forget the Traveler, forget the Archons, forget the Zaritza. Cats are Celestia's biggest enemy. However, there may be a traitor within the ranks of catkind, and his name is Haichiko. Haichiko is described as a very agile little fellow who is very fond of fish. For this reason, it will sometimes go to the seaside to look for fish that have washed up on the shore. This may be nothing, but Fontaine's quests have attributed dragons to sea creatures. Therefore, we can extrapolate the meaning of Haichiko's description of going to the seaside to look for fish to going to the seaside to look for dragons. Now, the crazy thing about Haichiko is its connection to the Electro Dragon Sovereign. Now, the Electro Dragon Sovereign, you might be thinking, we've never heard about such a creature in the lore. We don't even know if it exists. Well, that's my point. What if the reason we've never heard of an Electro Dragon Sovereign is because Haichiko has gobbled him up like a piece of fish? Gobbled him up like a piece of fish. That is, it's such a head scratcher. Because up to this point, we've only seen cats in Genshin Impact being against Celestia. Now, the Sovereigns are historical enemies of Celestia, and the fact that Haichiko would eat one and get rid of one, that is kind of a betrayal to catkind. And that's what's so compelling for me. There's so much intrigue, backstabbing, betrayal, bloodshed in this story of cats against Celestia, and I am so excited to see where it goes in the future. I hope you guys are as well.